Alright, so in this question, we're trying to predict the number that fits in this pattern on this table to figure out how many surfers we should see on the 5th week of this cycle right here. Now, in many ways, these types of test questions are shallow because they ask you to ignore a lot of things that you should take into account, right? As time goes on in this table, I guess we're assuming that because the numbers are always increasing as we go on, that this will keep happening. But of course, that's a shallow assumption because we don't know what's happening during these weeks, right? Is the weather changing in a way that will affect the waves or affect people's ability to go surfing? Perhaps it's getting colder. Perhaps people typically go back to work on the 5th week here in a certain area and can't surf, and then maybe the numbers would drop dramatically. But as this is a test question and is devoid of serious context, we must assume that what's going to happen here is that we're going to add some average amount, right, to figure out what the best approximation is for the 5th week here. And I think they even might give us a couple of choices, so I'll simulate that. Let's say choice A says something like 501, and then B says 702, and C says 903, and D says, let's say, 1100. What would you pick here? Well, again, we're estimating, and I mean, in something like this, because this is an estimation process, you want to make it as easy on yourself as possible. So I notice that here from 400 to 600, I'm adding about 200. And here from 620 to 715, I'm adding about 100. Okay, so far, my average increase is about 150, right? 200 plus 100, that's 300 divided by 2, so the average is 150. And the next step here, I add about, right, another 100, but this time it's a little over 100. So as I go on, it's reasonable to say that I'm adding about, right, if I add 200 plus 100 plus 100, that's 400, right, divided by 3 jumps, that's my changes, don't divide it by 4 there, even though there are 4 numbers so far, you're dividing here by 3 because these numbers represent how much we're increasing on each jump. So we have 400 divided by 3, right, and what's that? Well, that's just like if you have 4 over 3, that's 1 and a third, so this is about 133 and a third, right? 400 divided by 3 is equal to 133 and a third. But really, all you have to do is make the observation that 3 goes into 400 a little more than 100 times, which means that the increase here on average is a little bit more than 100. Out of all the choices here, C is the only one that makes sense, right? Because D, 1100, is way too high. A and B both decrease in value. And since we only have this table, right, to build on the context of the problem and to figure out what's next, we have to assume that this pattern keeps going up, right? Because this table is all we know about the area in which these people are surfing. All right, hope that helped.